Okay, so today we're going to get started. We're going to be working on dialogue editing, which is a part of the assignment that's coming up for this feature film scene that you're editing here. Please read through that assignment that's posted on Canvas regarding what's required for that A portion, that B portion, and so on, to make sure that if you want that specific letter grade that you do put in all the components that need to go into it. So today up here I have my Guess Who project that's been opened up. And I already have in and out marks set right now because you've probably exported it out or done something with it in some capacity. So if that's the case, in my timeline window down here, I'm just going to hit G on my keyboard, and that's going to clear my in and outs. So you'll see how like G kind of looks similar to T and R and E and also I and O. Those are all a bunch of in marks and removing your in and out marks. So those there that are all, it's kind of color coordinated in a way where the yellow ones are all having to do with in and out marks, clearing them, or grouping the track and such, or grouping in and out marks. So what we want to take a look at here is going to be dialogue editing. Mine necessarily isn't the perfect example of what I have up here, just based on yours should be more of a scene that you've edited together. But I'm going to show you kind of a rough idea here of what's happening. So the first thing we want to do, because it's a new day, what do we want to do? Yes, we want to duplicate. So in my current cut bin here, I have a scene 16 version 4 that I've worked on. So if you're right-clicking and looking to duplicate, and it doesn't give you that option in there, how do we duplicate a sequence? Yes, Control D. That's going to duplicate it. The one that it already gives you the ability to type in that says the .copy at the end, I'm just going to backspace it until I can change the number to 5. And actually for today's thing, I would like you at the end where you have your version number, just so you can reference back to this one if needed. Go ahead and put another underscore and add audio edit. So this way you know, okay, yeah, I went up a version, but also this is the one that I'm doing some audio work with here. So you'll be able to use that as a reference. Then the older version one, remember we dragged that on over to our previous cuts bin. So I'm just going to close that out. So that only in our current cut one, that there's only ever one cut. The other thing is then by moving it over and then exiting out of that previous cut bin, is that it eliminates it from my timeline down here. Because oftentimes what will happen is students will duplicate it, or sometimes myself too. I'll duplicate it and then I'll start working in the sequence, and it's actually the older version that I'm editing in, and I didn't realize, oh, I needed to double click up top. So just by moving it to your previous cuts bin, exiting out of that bin, it's going to eliminate it from your timeline. And then it's going to force you to double click on that current cut one, and that will be the one that appears. So take a look at the bottom of your timeline. Just make sure that it says that scene 16, your underscores, and then that version number, and then audio edit. Okay, perfect. So what we're going to do here is start to checkerboard things. Now we checkerboard stuff so that we can kind of overlap these fades, because what we're not going to do is do a crossfade or a quick dissolve or something how it is set up right now, because I'm going to hear the fade dip and then come off. Okay, so what we need to do is allow one of the tracks to come down and fade out while this other one underneath it is coming back up. Okay, so we have these two mono tracks here. And now what I want you to do is I want you to go to your next cut. So you have your first cut here, which is probably the opening of the scene or whatever it may be. Then I want you to go find that next cut. So that next video that appears here. And I want you to hold down Control. And I want you to grab it with the red arrow, click, and drag it down. Just by dragging it down, it should automatically create two new mono tracks for you. Okay. If you grabbed it with the yellow arrow, it's going to fill up that space, which means, here, I'll show you quickly here. So if I grab this one with the yellow arrow and I bring it down, you're going to see that it then fills that track. So I'm going to hit Control Z, and I'm going to go ahead with the red arrow. I hold down Control because it snaps it to an edit point, so I know that I'm not losing or slipping out of frames at all. And then I bring it on down. So then what I want you to do is I want you to go to your next one. That one will stay up. But the one after that one, you're going to bring that one down. Okay? So you're checkerboarding. So it's going to go every other. So the first cut stays in A1, A2. That second cut moves down to 3 and 4. That third cut stays up in 1 and 2, and that next one comes down in 3 and 4. Remember to hold down Control. If it slips at all, you can always just slip it back easily with Control, because it's going to jump it back to where it was supposed to be. Yeah, those are the but yeah, so you just go back. So, yeah. Okay. Once you've done that, go ahead and hit Control S. And then a couple other things I want to point out in terms of tracks and everything. My tracks became larger when I dropped the other 2 down there. You can simply just hover, hold Control, and then hover in between your tracks here, and you can adjust the height of it if you want. So you can adjust how big that track is, get it bigger, if it's smaller, whatever it may be. You're good to go there with it. And then if you need to add any more tracks, you can always right click, go to new, and then it has what a video track is, Control Y, and then your audio tracks, Control U or mono, and Shift Control U is stereo. But as you saw, if you just need it moved somewhere, you can just drag it up to that spot, and it will do the same with the video as well for you. Okay. Perfect. So we've checkerboarded, we're good to go there. And then what we want to do is we want to start to roll it out. So what I was talking about is what's going to happen is this one here, the A1, A2, it's going to be fading down and out so that it's a smooth transition while this one fades in. Okay? And so you're going to be playing around with this, and you may end up extending some of the dialogue from the clip afterwards. If it's like Dante talking and you don't see his mouth, you may start that one a little bit earlier underneath. This is your time to figure out, do I have any off-mic dialogue as well I need to switch out, and that kind of information. Okay? But this is how we sound smoother so that each time a cut happens, I'm not hearing your cut, which means I can tell that you cut the audio, and now every cut I can hear it. Okay? So we're smoothing it out. Where I recommend you play this back is not in your headphones, because that's different mixing, is actually going to be in one of the editorial suites. So you can do some kind of setting it up, starting your foundation in your headphones if you'd like, but you need to do your official final mix in an edit suite where you can play it back and actually hear it in the speakers. Okay? Because when we play it in class, what do we play it out of? Crappy speakers, but speakers, yes. And so it won't be headphones, so it's very different mixing depending on what you're listening to it out of. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to roll out this one. So I'm at my first cut here. I've just put my cursor there. You can also hit U on your keyboard, drop you into trim mode. So right now I'm in trim mode. Okay. I know I'm in trim mode based on the dual rollers, but also up here what's appearing, which is the last frame of the A side, the first frame of the B side here. I don't care about the video. Okay. So I want to turn off my video. How do I turn off my V1? Which is what key? Hit 8. Hit 8 on your keyboard. That'll turn it off for you. Okay. If you want to zoom into your timeline, you're going to hit Control N bracket, and that'll zoom you on into your timeline so you can see things a little bit clearer. So now you'll see my cursor here has this line here, which is where I'm at, and then it's showing me what a frame is. So this lighter blue dotted one is going to be what a frame consists of in this project. So what I want to do is I want to roll out this A1 a little bit so I can get some extra room. Because basically I'm creating this manual crossfade, right, to make this smooth. So how do I roll out this audio a couple frames? So I just want to roll it out about 3 frames. What do I need to hit? If I hit the arrow key, what happens? Okay, so I'm going to hit U to bucket. Your bracket's going to give you the option to go to your ripple trim. It gives you your option to do a dual trim or put that ripple trim on the other side for it. I'm going to stay in dual because I'm just going to roll this out and I don't want to move anything. It is. So if you look at your M, your comma, your period, the / look at those keys down there. Those are going to roll out or roll up your frames. So if I hit the period one a couple times, you're going to see I'm extending this a frame at a time. Okay? If I decide I want to roll that back up, I'm going to hit the comma, and that's going to roll that back up for me. If I want to roll it out 10 frames, I'm going to hit the / that's going to roll out 10 frames for me. If I want to roll it up 10 frames, I'm going to hit N. Okay? Now, this same thing can be done based on your ripple trim. So if you're in yellow, that will give you different options. Remember, the yellow, the ripple trim, it's going to move things down or pull things up. Okay, so just be aware if you start to see numbers next to your audio and your video, it means your stuff's out of sync. So if you start to see a -12 or a +10 or something, it means your video and audio now have gone off. Okay. So just be aware of that. I'm going to roll this out. Let's just do like 4 frames. I rolled it out about 4 frames. So if I'm still in trim mode, I'm going to hit the space bar.
For here, guests will be sprays of roses.
You're going to see that it will play it back. It plays it in loop as well.
For here, guests will be sprays of roses. Parking. For here, guests will be sprays of roses.
Right. So my dialogue is not matching up at all for this opening one. But we're going to roll this out and kind of fix this a little bit based on what I think will work for this scene. But you're going to notice here that there are numbers that appear under your trim mode. What are the numbers that you all have? Are they 4? Okay. So 4 means I'm going to play about 4 seconds before this cut that you have, and then 4 seconds afterwards. You can adjust those numbers if you want based on how it's working. I think 4 will put you into a good rhythm and like feel of how does this cut sound. And so we'll leave it as that. Okay. And then what we're going to do is I've rolled that out. So you're going to see now they're overlapping. So now what I want to do is add keyframes to this so I can fade this one down a little bit. All right. So did you all roll yours out so that they're overlapping? Perfect. Yes. Yes. Yep. Your A3 and A4. Yep. So what's highlighted? So if you turn off your A3 and A4, perfect. Now you can roll the one separately. Great. Yep. That's perfect. Okay. Does anyone have questions though? Okay. So are we all good with me kind of moving on to this next step? All right. Wonderful. So what I want to do is I want to add keyframes. So we rolled them out a little bit. They're overlapping. And so now we want to start adding stuff. So I'm going to take me out of trim mode by hitting U. So go back a little bit. So that's my left arrow. I'm just kind of going back. And I want to add a keyframe. So to add a keyframe on your keyboard shortcut, you're going to see next to the enter key that's green, there is a comma, no, quote, yes, an apostrophe. That is a pink triangle. Okay? That is your keyboard shortcut for a keyframe. I want you to hit that. Now, it should appear on the track that you were just working on. As you'll see here, mine has appeared here. There are little black triangles. It's appeared on the track that I told it to go to, which was my A1, A2, which was highlighted. If it doesn't appear, it could be that your track wasn't highlighted. It could be that this audio keyframe mode is turned off. Or it could be, which most commonly happens, is that down in your fast menu, where your audio data is, you do not have your clicking or volume turned on. Then all you are clicking that keyboard shortcut and you get a ding noise, it means that you do not have certain stuff turned on that needs to be turned on. So the 3 areas to look are what? Yep. So audio data is one area to look. Make sure you have that clicking and volume turned on. What's another thing you need to look at? Yep, your thing up here, which is your audio keyframes. If that's turned off, it means that it will not allow you to put keyframes on. And what's another thing that will not allow you to put keyframes on a track? Yep, if it's not selected, because you're not telling Avid, okay, what track do you want me to put these keyframes on, okay? So that also means if you put your blue cursor over tracks that have all of them highlighted, it may apply all those keyframes to all the tracks. So just be aware of what you're working with, and that's why it's also helpful to have your audio tracks numbered up here, so you can easily turn things on and off instead of having to click everywhere all the time, okay? So we've got our one keyframe there, which right now, if I move, is just going to adjust our overall volume of the clip. Like that's all it's going to allow me to do right now. So I want you to go ahead and grab that keyframe, and I want you to try to move it up and down, just so you kind of get familiar. In order to grab it, you got to get the little hand thingy. See the little hand pointer, and now grab it, drag it up and down. Can you move it left and right? Oh, all right. Let's click off. I want you to hold down Alt, then I want you to click, and I want you to try to move it up and down, and then move it left and right. Okay. So just by clicking on it, you can move it up and down. By holding down Alt and clicking on it, you can move it left and right. Okay. So we're going to keep that one where it is. I'm going to use my arrow keys to go a little bit later, and I want to create this fade out. So I want to add another keyframe so we can then fade this clip out while I'm fading up this other clip. So how do I add a keyframe? That's keyframe button next to your enter key. Go ahead and hit that. To give you your other keyframe, you're going to grab it. Now, if you want to highlight both of them at the same time, you can hold down Shift and highlight them. You can set in and out marks as well. So for example, if I wanted to highlight all 4 of these, I could set in and out marks, and then when I click on it, it will highlight all of them. So you just need to be aware if all of a sudden you're clicking on a keyframe and it's highlighting a bunch of them, check and see if you have in and out marks set. What keyboard shortcut did we use just a little bit ago to clear our in and out points? G, perfect. So I'm going to hit G, and then I'm going to click off of it, and I'm going to click on this one. Oops. There, and then hold down Shift, and I can click on the other one. You also have the ability to too close to an edit. So you can highlight both of them just by holding Shift, and then I'm just going to drag them down. Okay. So if I solo this track here by hitting S and then play it, you're going to see, now this is a quick fade out. It's not like this dramatic fade or anything, because I'm going to show you something else you can do, which is just like a quick and dirty that you need last minute for something. You're working with about, how many frames did we roll out? 4 frames, okay? How many frames make up a second in this project? Moving around now. 29.97, so 30 frames, okay? So you're talking, it's less than a second, like it is a small amount, but that's all it means. And it makes a world of difference when you play it, especially at a theater of some sort or on a sound system. If you can hear shifts if they're too long, but this is just a nice little smooth fade out. So what we're going to do then is we want to fade the clip underneath it up. Okay, so we've faded this one down, and now let's work on our A3, A4. So I'm going to turn those on. I'm going to go kind of to the start of my clip here, and you can roll this one out as well. So I'll put myself in trim mode. Again, I'm just going to roll it out a little bit so I have kind of some room to work with, and also see what's on this end here. Like, do I have a bunch of dialogue here? Do I need to pull additional nap noise in? Things of that nature. So remember, you're going to turn off your V1, and then I'm just going to hit that comma a couple times just to roll it out a little bit, give myself something to work with. Roll it out actually a little bit more. This unit's here. Yeah. So I have a lot of room potentially to work with. And so depending on what's happening here, I might take his lines from this one and even start this fade a little bit earlier. So I'll kind of show you a little bit of that in a second. So out of trim mode, I'm going to scoot over just a little bit to start my keyframe. Go a little bit later, put my other keyframe, grab these two, hold down Shift, drag it on down. Okay. So then what I have is
these sprays of roses.
Okay. You're going to notice though that mine are kind of talking over each other a little bit. So I'm actually going to select these keyframes and bring them over a little bit more. So maybe I want his volume all the way down so that it's on something similar.
Third guess will be sprays of roses.
Okay. So something of that nature. I know dialogue doesn't make full sense, but maybe that's the best way to cut some of what Dante's saying. Like, just make it overwhelming for Percy. You can have fun with this edit too. Okay. So that's what I'm talking about when we're referring to dialogue editing. You're going to see here that you're fading the one, your A1, A2 out, while you're fading up your A3, A4. When you go to your next edit point, you're going to be fading up, you're going to be fading out your 3 and 4 while you're fading up your 1 and 2. Does that make sense? Wonderful. Okay. So we've talked about that, rolling those out. Ensuring that any dialogue that is off mic, which means if it's not in that person's coverage, they're probably off the microphone. So replace that with dialogue that's from their shots, from their coverage. I have on here a reminder about your tracks organization. Usually dialogue is 1 to 4, 5 to 8 tend to be your background tracks, and then your sound effects and music. Now those numbers will change based on what you're working with and what you're bringing in, but the organization of how they should be structured in your timeline will remain consistent with that. Okay? Now, if you're working with this and all of a sudden you do not have like any wiggle room in terms of the dialogue, like you have no opportunity to roll it out at all because someone starts talking right away after it, what you need to do is pull what we call nat noise, natural sound, from the production and lay it underneath both of those so that you have this kind of nice background track while the others are not able to overlap. Okay? So what I want to show you is how do you think or where do you think we can find some of this natural noise? Where can we pull it from with footage that we have?
First walk out.
Okay.
That natural noise, I guess.
Okay, yeah, like a spot where potentially there's no dialogue in a way. Joey? Okay, let's take a look at the opening shot of the house and see. So, do we recall what number that is or where that's at? So that's mirror sync footage. And let's go ahead and find that exterior shot of the house. And I want you to go ahead and watch it. Oh, no, people are organized. I found mine quite quickly here. All right, go ahead and play it. Sorry, I'm laughing because you guys are so cooking. If you found the house yet, and you're then you hear. Oh, yeah. No, Joey, I think this is a great thing you brought up because everyone assumes that. And what's so annoying is that this production decided, no, let's shoot this MOS. We don't need to capture sound here. And it's the best opportunity to get natural noise in this environment. And it would be a great thing because it's like a minute worth of wild noise that we could pull from. But they decided, no, we don't need sound here. So you'll notice here on this slate, it says MOS, and they're not closing the slate, which means there's no sync sound to this. We didn't get sound. We just got the sound of the house. So unfortunately, what I would assume would be a great place to look as well turns out to not be a great place. Do we have any other suggestions? I'm going to say is to look at any of Dante's or Percy's 2 shots at the end of them. You're going to notice that they travel with Dante here. And so that gives us a good 30 seconds, 15 seconds of him just wandering about randomly, and we get that natural noise there. Okay. So if all of a sudden you needed to bring that in for some reason, I want you to go ahead and find a 2 shot of some sort here. So I pulled a 16E. Let's see. So either 16D or 16E will give you the opportunity to do it. So I want you to go ahead and find one of those clips, which is the 2 shots. Yep. Okay. And if you go towards the end of it, We've got some good natural noise there. Hold on. All right, so I'm gonna find like I think a good spot here, mark an endpoint, and say I need it to last like a certain part that's down here in my timeline. So what I can do is what we call 3-point editing, where hey, if there's a certain part I know needs to like, I need this clip to last this long in my timeline, I can tell Avid this is how long I want this clip to be when you bring it in, instead of like guessing and checking or dragging and such. You can do that. But what we need to do first is tell Avid like, hey, we're bringing in this new track, but we want it on its own track here. So we need to add some new tracks. What was the keyword shortcut to add new mono tracks? Control U. Well, you're close. Starting with Control. I love it. So Control U is going to give you 2 new mono tracks. Okay, so I have a 5 and 6, and technically these are background tracks in a way because they're just nat noise that I need here. Okay, so they will go at the bottom. So Control U gave me these tracks. I then want to make sure that the green A1 and A2 that's over here, this associates itself to 4 and 5, because right now if I drop it in, it'll drop it in right in 3 and 4. So say like I want it to be, let's go ahead and set our in and out marks of how long we need it to be. So let's say we want it to be like, oops, in and out. All right, so say we want it to be ideally this long. We'll see if Avid gives us an error message or not. But say this is how long we'd like our net noise to last for. So I've set in and out marks here in my timeline. I then, right now, if I hit B or V on my keyboard, it's going to put it where my green side A1 and A2 are associated. So it put it in 3 and 4. So I'm going to hit Control Z, and I'm going to turn off my 3 and 4. I'm not going to click it off. I'm going to hit A and 4 on my keyboard. And that automatically then associates the green A1 and A2 to the correct ones that I have turned on. I then can hit B in my timeline here, and it'll drop that audio clip exactly where I need it, or the length that I need it. So you have that, and then you would, of course, also add fades to this as well. So to fade that in and then fade it out so it's smooth too. So it's nice to kind of have that. So you'll have a lot of fades going on. But what I want to show you next is quick transitions, which I always classify as like a quick and dirty way to do fades as needed. And I'll tell you at what distance or length duration you should set them for. So with the one we just dropped in, we're going to go ahead and add some quick transitions to it. So I'm actually going to jump back to the front side of it, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the quick transition button actually on my keyboard, but you're going to see it looks something like this. That's up here. And so the button is just above your enter key on your keyboard, and I want you to go ahead and hit it. So that'll bring up your quick transition, which gives you options of what you want to work with and what you want to apply it to. So because I just have my A1 and my A5 and A6 turned on, that's all it's going to apply it to. But notice that you can check whatever you need to, what tracks you want to apply it to. And we want to make this very short. So we're talking like 6 frames is kind of where you're at for that duration of it. So I'm going to type in, let's just turn on the number pad, type in 6. And usually I want 3 before it, or you could do also 0 before it as well. So it's about 6 frames, 8 frames that you're working with for a quick dissolve, just to make it nice and smooth for it. And I'll probably, like I said, I have it starting after the cut. You can have it starting in the middle of the cut here, before the cut, or after the cut. Okay. And those are all options you can work with. If Avid is not letting you move at a certain spot, usually what that means is you do not have that data to work with. So you brought in maybe a clip at the start, like the beginning of that clip, no data for it to pull from to say, hey, I want this to start 3 frames before, because there are no 3 frames right before. The next thing to look at is going to be then your target drive. So this is where, because it's an effect, where do we save this effect to? Where do you think you saved this effect to? Your media drive. So go ahead and make sure you choose your media drive. Otherwise, you're going to have to render it anytime you're on a new computer. So pick your media drive, and then you can hit add and render. You'll see then that green square disappeared, and this is all rendered and good to go. You can just
Please praise the Brooke.
Again, it's also subtle, but it makes a huge world of difference having this quick fade there. Then let's go ahead and add the quick fade to the end of it to get us out of it. So again, I went towards the end. I'm going to hit that quick transition keyboard shortcut. Make sure it's still applied to 5 and 6. Just going to do 6 frames again total. I'm going to have them all appear before the cut because I want us completely faded out by the end of this here. So all the fade remains in there. So go back to the media drive. And so this one, go ahead and just hit add. So I want you to kind of see the difference. Okay. So we rendered this one over here, which means that this effect will play back in real time. It's been rendered. We don't need a lot of processing power for it because we already have the information stored. Okay. This one here means it hasn't been rendered because it's green. However, because it's green, it will play back in real time. So it means it has the ability to do so. However, if you start to notice little red or yellow dashes above here in your timeline, it means that it's having a hard time processing multiple effects, right? Which means you need to render it. There are a couple ways you can render it. I find the quickest and easy way is just to set in and out marks of what needs to be rendered, right click, and hit render and do render in and out. That's just an ensure way to know, okay, Abbott's getting all the rendered effects here that I'm working. So I just set in and out marks, I right click, and I do render, and then I hit render in and out. Again, I'm just going to do the process in the application because it's only 2 quick effects I'm rendering, making sure that I set it to my media drive, and hit OK. It renders it quickly, and then my green squares are gone. If the square is blue, it means that effect cannot play back in real time. So even though it may play it and act like, hey, it has an effect on it, it's not going to apply it unless you render it. It can't play it back unless it's rendered. And then the other parts I just want to go over quickly. We have our other workspaces over here. So you have your audio one. So if I click on that, you're going to see it gives you your faders for all of your audio tracks you're working with and your master fader as well, along with your audio tool down here. So just kind of keep an eye on where your dialogue's at, keep it consistent, use those keyframes as needed to adjust the levels as well. But you also have your clipping that is an option to adjust also with it. And that's it. I do have my little note down at the bottom that dialogue editing takes listening to the same spot again and again and again to ensure a smooth transition to that next clip. So please make sure you're listening to it. Listen to those cuts back. It is a tedious job and it feels repetitive, but guess what? Someone gets that sole credit when it comes to feature films of being a dialogue editor. Like that's their one job is to be a dialogue editor on feature films. All right. There's one other thing I forgot to mention. We did go over this briefly though, but if I go ahead, there's a couple ways where I want to roll off our highs and lows. The human voice only is a small frequency within this range for us, so we want to roll off the parts that we don't need, that are just extra noise for us. And so I just turned on my track control panel here, and you're going to need to see these nondescript little buttons, and these are where we can put audio plugins. So I clicked on that button, and it gave me this audio track effect tool. And what I can do is hit this drop down. I can do mono EQ, and I can go to an EQ 37 band. And then what I want to do, you can just do a factory default if you'd like to just kind of give yourself something to work with originally. So say I'll do, yeah.
What did you want to drop down to get that?
This nondescript little square, the one that says EQ right now, but it's just blank. Yep, perfect. So that's where you can add plugins. So this one, for example, I did inside the club. I'm just going to lower these. But the areas we want to look at are going to be our high pass and low pass filters, which are the silver ones here. So our high pass and our low pass. And I'm going to go ahead and just bring these over. And so you are rolling off these highs and lows. So you're basically saying, like, don't include any noise that's outside of these frequencies, because we just want the dialogue to be coming out and we want that to be the most present. So that's how we would do that. And then just be aware of what your output is set to. If you do pick any of those presets, just readjust your output back to 0. Because otherwise it's going to sound better because it's going to be quieter. But we want to make sure we're hitting the dialogue where we need to. Okay? So again, just kind of adjusting your high pass, your low pass filter there. You've got our plugin of what we're working with, and then you can exit. And then you will have to render that track before you export and everything. Before you export, but you can easily just apply it there instead of doing it to each clip. If you then want to just readjust them and put them on other ones, you can hold down Alt and drag it, and that's going to then put it on each of them. So you're rolling up your highs and lows for your dialogue. Check, I just did it. Okay. Any questions? So then you can work on what you need to, read through your project of what I'm asking for. Let me know if you have questions on that as well. Or kind of taking the most of your time. Like, yeah. Yeah, just down lows. Yeah.
Let's see how it's lazy.
Yes. So literally the question you were asking me feels like that right now. Like, should I change this? Well, what do you think of the editor of this? If the director sees this and goes, what is that? I worked with this one guy, I loved him though. And he would call me out of my bullshit sometimes. So he'd be like, that's not music, that looks good. I'm just like, oh my god, I'm so annoyed at the scene. He's like, come on. And so it's that same type of thing. Like, yeah, it looks like rational. Figure out a way that you do it a little bit better. Yeah. Okay. Perfect.